So this class is about Siebel Tools. Okay. So this class is about Siebel Tools. Okay. Basically, what is Siebel Tools? First question is Siebel Tools is the environment, development environment of Siebel. The application that you guys use, that is basically the application to do the work. But how is it made and where is it made? It is coded using Siebel Tools. Or you can say it can be the configurations are controlled using Siebel Tools. So that is the development environment of Siebel. Okay. So when we say developers, developers, what do? They use Siebel Tools to develop Siebel. When you guys gather requirements, business analysts gather requirements, give it to developers, you tell them that, hey, you know what, I want the screen to be renamed from, let's say, accounts to clients. You guys do your analysis and come out with this conclusion. Then where does he go to change the name of the screen? He goes to Siebel Tools. If you say that you want a new field which should have SSN, which should be labeled SSN, and it should be whatever rules you give, he has to do this, set up these rules. He has to develop Siebel, right? He has to change Siebel application in the context screen. He has to provide that field with the label, and in the field he has to give the properties that you guys will give. Let's say you guys give the properties as it should be 12 characters. After 3 first characters, it should be having a hyphen. Then after 2 more characters, it should have another hyphen. That's the format of the SSN, right, in this country. So where will he set this rule? Where will he enter the code for this field? He has to do coding, right? He has to do development. So that's all Siebel Tools. That's where he does all this work. Okay. So Siebel Tools is the development environment of Siebel. So there are 2 things here. We should not confuse it with the development environment of Siebel Systems. Siebel Systems has made these Siebel Tools as well as Siebel application, which is done in C++ or Java. I don't even care what is that language they use. Okay, we don't care. But we do care about this Siebel Tools environment. This is where Mr. Developer can change the behavior of the application drastically. He can really redo the entire application. You just have to give the specifications in a document, in a design document. He will look at the design document and he will change the specifications drastically using Siebel Tools. He will change the specifications of the Siebel application. I was just talking to a few people. I've come across a number of questions regarding what is Siebel Tools. So they ask you, okay, is Siebel Tools a language? Answer is no. It's an environment. It has all the object definitions already written. Siebel application is already made. That means when you go into Siebel Tools, you will see that the configuration of each and every component. Right? Whatever is already there should be represented here, right? Because it is already made. It's already there, right? So is it a language? No, it's not a language. It's basically a development environment. It's a configuration environment. If you have to ask me, how does it look like? You can see, if you look at this applet, this is a name, and it has some properties like controls. All the various fields are mentioned here like this. Labels are mentioned as label. We'll look at this, but the point is, all the things that you see in Siebel application are represented here. How are they represented is a class, right? That's what the class is all about. We'll learn that in the forthcoming hour. But everything that you see in the application. Anyway, so we have already discussed what is Siebel Tools. Aman, you okay. So what we will do is, I think the first thing is the baseline. What we will do is, if you see a field in GUI, we need to be able to trace. So this is a very important diagram. If you are doing any kind of basic work, if you understand this simple diagram, you are fine. Applet is mapped onto business component, and business component is mapped onto table. And every applet has control. Control simply means field. The pure name is control, but basically it simply means field. This is your control. Yeah, controller. Description is a control basically. Okay, which is mapped to BC field, and similarly which is further mapped to table column. We understand table and column. BC and field is new thing. Applet and control is also something that we know.
Yeah.
If you understand this simple diagram, and then you will be, then you might ask, what are these four things? Actually, they don't have any value from the business logic standpoint. They just are, regrouping at the GUI level. View, screen, and application is just grouping of applets. Remember, multiple applets, they make one view. Multiple views make one screen. Multiple screens make one application. Similarly, multiple business components make one business object. What is a business object? Quite frankly, you may not use it your entire life, but we'll discuss that a little bit. Business component is more important for us. So it's a frequent thing that for an applet you need to know there is okay. Why are we doing this thing? So let's answer that question first. Why does a BA need to know these things? Okay, we know these things as part of our chapter 3 knowledge that okay, applet is mapped onto BC. But why are we getting into Siebel tools? What are we planning to do? What happens is multiple times, you would be analyzing a requirement and thinking in terms of what is available in vanilla Siebel. If you are a smart BA, you can do that through GUI itself. You can understand everything in GUI. But sometimes, it just helps, to look into the tools and be able to understand how it is configured in the vanilla application. That is the purpose of doing all this. So if you see a control in GUI and instead, you're thinking, remember I told you how to identify the length of this thing? There is an exercise for that. I'm sure you guys have done that exercise. That's part of chapter 0. How to know the length of a field. You click new, remember? Have you done it?
Yeah.
You click new, 1, 2, 3. This is how you can know the length. Keep pasting it and that's how you will know the length. Whether it is of type varchar or not, whether it accepts characters or not, that you can know by actually trying to enter some characters. For example, revenue, you enter T like this, it is not accepting. That means it is only taking numerical values.
Just numerical.
Right? Whether there's an auto formatting available or rule there, applied there or not, that if you go to, let for example, in professionals, you can know it from GUI itself. For example, this one, there is an auto formatting rule, right? If you enter any number, it will be automatically formatted. 333, 334 extension, brackets and everything. This is called as auto formatting. So many things are available in GUI itself, right? So that is the reason out of 100 projects to which I will be sending, to which I send my consultants to, only 3 projects really need some knowledge of Siebel tools. 97% do not need any knowledge. 95 to 97% don't need any Siebel tools knowledge. Really, after a long time, when someone is asking for Siebel tools knowledge, right? That is the reason we are getting into this thing. So now you might ask, what kind of other, for example, whether a field is a pick applet or not. That is available in GUI. You don't need to go anywhere. You can check it in the GUI itself. Whether it's an MVG or a single value field,
That's also in GUI.
you can check it in GUI. Whether it is a required field or not, you can check it in GUI. Whether copying is allowed or not, if you click copy, let's say you highlight a record, Siebel 8, right? So whether it is copying is allowed or not, you can see, just click on copy, highlight a record, click copy. If it is allowed, that means it is allowed. You don't need to go to Siebel tools to check it. Whether undoing is allowed, whether there is a conditionally required field, whether committed is a checkbox or not, you can see it right here, whether it's a checkbox or not. Whether it is an unbounded pick list, you can see it by trying to enter another value which is not there. If it is not there, if you are able to enter something else also, that means it's an unbounded pick list, static pick LOV. Okay, whether it is an LOV or not, you click on this, you can see whether it's an LOV or not. Now you know it is an LOV, right? Whether it allows new person to be created right here or not, you can see whether it is allowed or not from the GUI itself. We have done a number of exercises about chapter 0 about observing what is there in application, right? So typically you don't need to go to tools, right? You don't need to go to tools. That is the reason 93% of the times you don't have to go. 95, 96, 7% of the times you don't have to go. Sometimes what happens is they start asking for you to do the gap analysis in terms of BC and the fields. For example, if it is vanilla, you can know. Let's say they have already done some customization, right? Typically, when you go to a project, there will be already some customization in place. They would want you to understand how they have done, how in Siebel Tools. What is the effect you can see in GUI? But let's say there is some field which is MVG, right? Now, whether they have created a business custom business component or they've used some existing business component that you can see, and then how it is behaving and what is it, what are the mappings you can see only in tools.
Yeah.
Okay. um, Sometimes some of the things have to be enabled in tools first. For example, audit trail, for example, workflows, for example, assignment manager objects. Before you do the magic in, okay, there are some admin options, for example, LOVs. Okay, before you do the magic in GUI, certain things, the field also has to be set up in tools first. Now, if it is set up as an LOV here, then you know that it will be, it has to be someone who must have done the magic in tools also. But if it is a custom object, if it is a new object, she might say not only mention that provided in GUI, also mention which business component needs to be changed how much. You see, so from observation standpoint, you can typically close the discussion or close your analysis by looking at the GUI. But if you have to say what all changes are required at the tools level, then you might have to go into tools. Not might have, then you definitely have to go. Typically, they will not ask for it, but typically, in 3-4% they might ask you for those kind of things. Okay, in GUI you want this, but tell me in BC what should I do? As a BA, you're supposed to tell them sometimes. That's why, just very little times. This project seems to be something like that. Okay, does it make it any tougher? No. No, it doesn't make it any tougher. It rather is a good learning opportunity, because if you are in Siebel as a BA, you are still supposed to know these things. Sooner you learn, the better it is for you. BA work of Siebel is not about just gathering requirements. It's also about analysis with reference to Siebel. So if you are a friend, in the first project itself, they are asking for this analysis, that's good. Why do I know these things? First of all, as a BA, I was not supposed to learn these things. But actually what happens is, over a period of time in some project, they asked for it. Hey, can you tell us, what changes are required at the table level? Let me give a very good example. Let's say someone says, I need a new field here, SSN field. Okay, that is a requirement. So by eyeballing, I'm calling it eyeballing, there is no field available. You can go here in professional and see that SSN field. So SSN field is not here, as you can clearly see. You can see in the list column also whether it is there available or not. It's just not available. Now, sometimes what happens is some field might be available in tools. Good possibilities. Say this is a vanilla, but let's say you go to a project. They have been doing customizations for the last 2 years, right? Who knows? 1 year back they created a field, but they didn't use it. You need to look. Sometimes you need to look at the table, columns and all, and say that new column has to be added or not. There are a number of reasons why you will if it gets that technical, you might have to look at the Siebel tools to really get satisfied. I would say 80% of the things, 90% of the things, even in this project, you can just check it from the GUI, observe it from the GUI, and you'll be satisfied. But each project may, within all the projects, 5% of the projects might demand the skills. Within those 5%, only 20% work will be requiring some analysis at the tools level. Okay. ऐसा करते हैं. Now let's start observing these definitions in Siebel. Let's not spend too much time on this thing. Basically अमन मैं ये कहूँगा कि purpose wise ना, मतलब कि मुझे खुद लगता है कि इतना पर्पस नहीं होना चाहिए. There is not much purpose that is served by just looking at Siebel tools and not by looking at GUI. But still, let's go for it. I'm pretty sure she must be having some purpose in mind. कुछ ना कुछ आ जाएगा सामने, मेरे को तो यूजफुल लगता है, ठीक है ना? I mean,
वो तो ही वैसे नहीं होता काम में डेवलपर बता पर अपन टूल्स पे नहीं जा रहे कोई देखना।
मतलब मैं एक एग्जांपल दे सकता हूँ, थोड़ा सा कॉम्प्लेक्स एग्जांपल था इसलिए वो थोड़ा सा मैं आपको अवॉइड कर रहा था कि हमारे वहाँ पे ना एक इन आवर प्रोजेक्ट वंस व्हाट हैपेंड इज they were using service request screen. Okay, so at that point there were 20 required fields. Giving you an example, there was another screen, service request screen, separately for some just 5 users only, where only 5 service request fields were required. Now I know that it is not possible. If there is one applet where service request business component is used, then all those rules are basically at the business component level, BC level. Remember हमने बात की थी, एप्लेट के लेवल पे तो सिर्फ शो होते हैं, रूल्स तो सारे वहीं बन जाते हैं. सो अगर दूसरी जगह भी यूज हो रहा है सर्विस रिक्वेस्ट की एप्लेट है, चाहे जहां मर्जी है, रिक्वायर्ड फील्ड्स कैन नॉट चेंज. तो ठीक है, मतलब आई हैड टू गो इनटू टूल्स टू चेक व्हाट वाज द थिंग. ही हैड बेसिकली क्रिएटेड अ क्लोन ऑफ द बीसी. ही वाज यूजिंग अनदर बीसी.
सेम क्लोन बनाया, 15 ऐड कर दिए, सिर्फ 5 ही उनको जो विजिबल थे वो दिखाए.
नहीं दिखाए तो सारे, लेकिन रिक्वायर्ड सिर्फ 5 को रहने दिया, बाकी 15 को अनटिक कर दिया कि ये रिक्वायर्ड नहीं है. ठीक है ना, उस बीसी की डेफिनेशन में. ठीक है ना. तो I mean, looking at the screens and views, I could see what he is doing. But once I got into tools only, then I got a clear picture. I went into about view also. I saw his BC was little different. One was vanilla screen, जो भी नाम है, service request is the name of the BC, and that one was service request, whatever the name of the company was. Let's call ABC. So ABC service request. So I could see it's a different BC. But what are the exact rules he has set up? I checked 5. Yeah. Now interesting thing is, I was analyzing a requirement for another user where they wanted 7 fields to be required. Okay. So I had to see whether I can ask him to create a new BC or we can reuse that BC. Just small analysis. For that, I mean, मेरे को तसल्ली नहीं है. I will never get satisfied by just looking at GUI, because I'm gonna make a recommendation, let's do this thing. So I will say that only after looking at the BC and the field definitions. Once I see that those 5 fields are required and those 2 fields are not required, only then I can say create a new BC. So there are many examples. Okay, let's say it this way, once you start doing exercises, then many more examples will come, and that's when you will know better purpose. Abhi let's dive into this thing. Okay, so this is the main mapping. These 6 इधर से देखिए, इधर वाले सारे लिस्ट, कॉलम और कंट्रोल, एप्लेट, फील्ड, बीसी, कॉलम, टेबल. ठीक है, we'll traverse this mapping in Siebel Tools. This is our first thing. You need to do this as an exercise also. Maybe you can do it once we are done. You see this field status? We will look for this status field in the Siebel Tools. Okay, that is our exercise. Okay. तो ठीक है, it is in this applet. We'll look for help about view. Remember this thing, we did it in chapter 0. This is the internal unique name of the view. This view has these 2 applets, and this field, status field, is in the lower applet, right? Pharma professional entry applet, and we have the BC name contact. ठीक है, we will locate this field in the tools. So remember this thing. So this is what we are doing, right? We know the applet, we know the BC, we know what control is it. We have to find these 3. Really, just by looking at about view, we got 3 things already: control, applet, and BC. Okay. we didn't get field, column and table. Okay, so applet, anybody remembers what it was? Farmer professional entry applet. Okay, I'll just, this is called as object explorer. Okay, बेसिक टूल्स की मतलब मैं आपको बता देता हूँ एक्सप्लोर कैसे करते हैं. लेफ्ट साइड पे जो ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सप्लोरर है, आप व्यू में जाके प्रॉपर्टीज विंडो भी टिपिकली खोलता है हर डेवलपर. वो इस ही ओपन्स प्रॉपर्टी विंडोज ऑलवेज, he drags it and puts it here, docks it. This is the way developers work, this is the way you should work. I don't know, well, as a BA I am stressing more on these things because I know you have to look like you know. Right, these things help in making everybody feel that you know, if you are doing work in a certain way, you can figure out, right, whether you know things or not. So property window should be docked here. Then this is object explorer. There are 3 tabs here: type, detail and flat. I know that you'll be utilizing flat a lot. Let's not click on this. Clicking on this will take a long time. This properties it will show here the this is the applet which is highlighted. We'll look for our applet. Let's look for that quickly. It is case sensitive. Okay, I have put a star. Any kind of error in the name will not bring it. Okay, so be careful. Okay, star wins, I don't have to type everything. Lot more results have come, but then basically I can now, so typically what they do is people look for like pharma professional star, so that because there are a lot of you can make a lot of typing errors, then obviously the result will not come, nothing will come if you make a typing error. So people typically do like this, then they copy it, Control C, or basically copy it like this, then they make another query and then make another query with that full name, and then they get this entire, this is a way typically what I have seen developers do. Then only the thing that they want to look at is it can be seen. Okay, so let's understand what we are looking at just by taking this as an example. We'll go into our diagram later, but let's understand where we are right now. Okay, so it will help. This is same thing as in Siebel GUI. This is used for making a new query. This is used for making executing the query. This yellow button. These are typically not used. Even if these are used, that's fine. Don't worry. This property windows is used a lot. This property windows is showing the same thing, which is written like in a list like this. All the fields and their values are written right for this particular applet. Same thing is written here. Okay. So same thing. Just what I've seen is developers always look at here, look at this thing here because it's easier to look here instead of just scrolling through the list applet. When you're scrolling, don't scroll like this one field at a time. Scroll with full this thing like this. You guys know this thing, right? I'm clicking on on the scroll bar. That way I'm scrolling one page at a time. This is a way. Okay, and applets are mentioned here. BCs are mentioned here. They are, if you're looking for a BC, you need to make a query here. Similarly, tables are mentioned here. Okay, we need to understand, remember, now let's come back to this diagram. Applet has controls in it. So controls are children of applet, fields are children of BC, columns are children of table. It's basically the same thing. Now we remember we said one view has multiple applets, one applet has multiple controls. Same thing, right? So one applet has multiple controls. To look at all the controls, we need to go somewhere inside. We'll do that, but let's just understand where we are. नहीं चल रही थी, अब कर देते हैं, मुझे चाहिए इधर ही कर लेते हैं. ठीक है, so इधर ही कर लेते हैं. So we know the name of the applet, right? Let's look for the applet again. दिख रहा है, मैंने एंट्री नहीं लिखा था, कितनी सारी आ गई, लेकिन कोई बात नहीं, स्क्रॉल करके नीचे पहुंच जाएंगे. ये हमारी एप्लेट है. सिर्फ इसको कॉपी किया मैंने, कंट्रोल से प्रेस किया है इसको कॉपी करने के लिए. आई कॉपी दिस, नॉट record, आई कॉपी दिस, देन आई मेक अनदर क्वेरी, and now I just got my applet. Okay, we got the applet right from the GUI. We got the applet right from the GUI. Remember it in this about view. We got the applet name, pharma professional entry applet. We know that the label is status. We don't know the name of the control yet. And we also know the name of the BC. BC is contact. I'm sorry, contact. Here, this is the one we are studying, right? So we go back. In this applet, if you notice, it is the value of business component is contact. It really is simply saying it is this applet is mapped to contact business component. The thing that is shown in about view, it is same thing, right? We call this as mapping. If you have ever heard this word from me, business components are mapped to table, then this is what is called as mapping. I remember one of my guys, he was a new to IT kind of guy. He asked me what is meant by mapping. मैं कहा Harry, ये mapping है. For this applet, this is the component. That's a mapping. For this component, at someplace else, it will be written which table it is mapped to. There will be a field called a table. The value will be mentioned there. That means that business component is mapped to that. I can show you quickly. Okay. We have to always keep the properties windows like this here. It is you access it by clicking on view, properties window. It comes here like this. You drag and drop it like this and put it right here.
That's the professional way.
अभी करते contact कर लेते हैं. So contact is mapped to table name is s_contact. This is mapping. Right? This same as I said, this. Okay, let's talk about this properties windows once again. This properties window shows the value of the same thing. The information is there. The same information which is present above, like in this, is present in the properties windows right here. Same thing, same exact thing. Okay. It's just developers always like to see the properties like this rather than the like this. Okay. By the way, this is a subset of all the properties mentioned here. So developers keep this thing also. Okay. They look at it like this. So very importantly, when you are scrolling, you must scroll like this. Not by single field, not by clicking on this arrow, not by clicking on this arrow. It takes you one field at a time. You should click like this. Observe all the definitions, again do. Observe all the definitions, again do. That is the right way to do. Okay. Similarly, when you are working, okay. So this is a properties now. But typically, all the important properties, especially you as a BA would need, will be mentioned here. You won't need to look at any property which is basically mentioned in the list, but not in this form. Okay, properties window. Okay, so now let's again observe the definition. This is the applet. This is the applet. And this is mapped to that contact business component. Same thing, the same information which we got from that about view. Right? Now we need to find out the control. Okay, to find out the control, we remember that the label was status. I'm sure you guys remember this thing. In this is the label, this is the field. The name of the field should be something related to status only, but what exactly is the name is not known. So let's go there and find it out. Right click on the applet and click on edit layout. ये आएगा कुछ, क्लिक ओके. वैसे तो कुछ नहीं, वो कह रहा है कि रीड ओनली है, तुमने इसको एडिट करना तो ये करो वो करो. तुमने थोड़ा एडिट करना है. एडिट कौन करेगा? डेवलपर. उसका काम है. कभी गलती से एडिट मत कर देना, कोई फायदा नहीं है पंगे लेने का. This is the name of the control. Status. Now you know the name of the control. You know the name of the control, applet, BC. These three things are known. Other things are left. Okay. Now, what you do is you close this thing. To close this layout view, it is highlighted now, right? What you do is you simply go to file and close. It will close. Don't exit. Okay, exiting will take you out of tools. Okay, let's look at the controls, other properties. We know the name only. We don't know anything else. By the way, we know we have found the applet, but we did not observe other properties. Let's look at other properties. One property is very important properties. Which component it is mapped to? It is mapped to content business component. Many things are important here.
This we could also find out in GUI. The business component.
हाँ, एक GUI से भी पता चल गया था हमें. We could और भी प्रॉपर्टीज हैं. ठीक है, एज ए डेवलपर तो आपको सारी प्रॉपर्टीज की पता होना चाहिए. what is the importance of each and every property. For example, height is mentioned as 1. I mean, I don't know what 1 means, whether it's 1 inch, whether it's 1 unit, I don't know, but developers would know. If your other thing is, let's say you go to Siebel 7.8, properties will be different, little different, देख लेना. But you should know this is how the properties of those applet are. Let's try to identify some properties here. Title is professional. Let's look at whether the title of the applet is professional or not.
Yeah, no.
Is it?
I think so. Pharma comes out.
कोई टाइटल नहीं है. ये वाला तो मुझे दिखता है, लिस्ट एप्लेट में दिखेगा, इसका मुझे नहीं पता कहाँ लिस्ट एप्लेट का टाइटल का फॉर्मूला टाइटल कहाँ आता है. कोई चक्कर नहीं, डोंट वरी. चलते रहो. यार मुझे कहाँ टूल्स आता है यार, मुझे नहीं पता टाइटल प्रॉपर्टी कहाँ दिखेगी, बट इट विल शो ऑन द गुई. ठीक है, एक मिनट जरा, मैं कंट्रोल के अंदर दिखा दूंगा, उसके अंदर अच्छी अच्छी प्रॉपर्टीज हैं. बेसिकली आपसे भी क्वेश्चन वो यही पूछ रहा है ज़्यादा कि जो फील्ड है उसका प्रॉपर्टीज बताओ, तो फील्ड तक जल्दी चले जाते हैं. ठीक है, स्टैंडर्ड से क्या फर्क पड़ता है, व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ एप्लेट्स, वी डोंट नो यार. इतना नहीं फर्क, मतलब इतना नहीं आपको टूल्स जानना, आपको इतना जानना है कि आप अपनी जो चीज़ है उसको देख. लेट्स सी, कंट्रोल तक तो पहले पहुंचे, फिर देखते हैं क्या क्या और चीज़ें जाननी है. कंट्रोल्स आर मेंशनड हियर. You have to highlight the applet, then you go into controls. All the controls of this particular applet are gonna should be shown here. Remember our was status?
Yeah.
Same thing. I will copy it and I will only query for it. Once I query here, it will be queried in this one. Okay. Now look at some of the most important property. This is the name is status, right? As you can see, it is mapped to the field status only. In contact BC, there is a field called status. It is mapped to that field. ठीक है ना, तो देखेंगे. बाकी और चीज देख लो आप. हॉरिजॉन्टल स्क्रॉल अलाउड है, वर्टिकल स्क्रॉल नहीं अलाउड है, बहुत कुछ सारी प्रॉपर्टीज हैं. ये उसके लेवल की हाई 24 है, पता नहीं क्या क्या प्रॉपर्टीज हैं. पेरेंट नेम ये इसकी एप्लेट का नाम है. सीक्वेंस 9 है. सीक्वेंस मुझे पता है क्योंकि मैंने किया हुआ है. टैब सीक्वेंस होती है, ये लगा लो. 9वीं बार जब टैब 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 करोगे तो 9वीं बार यहाँ आएगा, ये मुझे पता है. ये इंपॉर्टेंट भी है थोड़ी, राइट. तो टैब स्टॉप पता नहीं इसका क्या. टेक्स्ट अलाइनमेंट लेफ्ट है, जब टेक्स्ट एंटर करोगे लेफ्ट पे आएगा.
ये तो उसकी प्रॉपर्टीज होगी ना फील्ड की.
ये उस फील्ड की प्रॉपर्टीज हैं यार. तुम्हें स्टडी मतलब
हम तो चेंज नहीं कर सकते.
नहीं, तुम चेंज मत करना, पर चेंज करवा सकते हो. खुद मत करना, करवाना तो तुम्हारे हाथ में.
मत लेना.
अच्छा, मल्टी लाइन का मुझे पता है मतलब क्या होता है. डिस्क्रिप्शन जैसे है ना, उसमें मल्टीपल लाइंस आ जाती है ना. देखो तुम यहाँ से देखो, ये वाला जो सा फील्ड है, दिस फील्ड, इफ यू नोटिस अपॉर्चुनिटी के अंदर ये डिस्क्रिप्शन जो फील्ड है अपना, ये मल्टीपल लाइंस है. ये मल्टी लाइन है. नहीं, एमवीजी दोस्त और है, ये है एमवीजी. ये इसमें मल्टीपल रिकॉर्ड्स आ सकते हैं. एक ही फील्ड है पर ये मल्टीपल लाइंस हैं.
वो मल्टीपल वेल.
मैं तुमसे इसका एग्जांपल देता हूं. इसके अंदर मल्टीपल नहीं अलाउड, इसके अंदर एक ही लाइन में सब आता रहेगा, नीचे वाली लाइन में नहीं आएगा. रैप नहीं होगा, इट वोंट बी रैप्ड. वेयर एज इन डिस्क्रिप्शन इट कैन बी रैप्ड. सी, इट इज गेटिंग रैप्ड. दिस इज दैट इज मल्टी लाइन मींस. ठीक है, एक एक करके और कर लेते. पहले कंट्रोल तक जाते हैं. कंट्रोल हो गया, स्टेटस कंट्रोल. सी, अकॉर्डिंग टू मी इवन कंट्रोल इज नॉट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज फील्ड. बीसी का जो फील्ड है, दिस वन, this is the most important thing. So let's get to that. Remember, the field is mapped to status field. BC name is contact, field name is status. We found that. So let's go to BC. Again, we come to business components. Look for the BC by querying for it. C has to be capital, remember that. एक बार करी ले जरा छोटे सी से, आ गया. Siebel 7.8 में ना आए तो don't get surprised. ये चीज़ ना केस सेंसिटिव होती है, कई बार इनसेंसिटिव होती हैं. इट्स बेटर टू ऑलवेज जस्ट फॉलो दिस थिंग. इस केस में हो रहा है तो अच्छी बात है, राइट. ठीक है, सो जस्ट बी केयरफुल. कई बार क्या होगा कि आपका एरर ही होगा कि आपने सी छोटा डाला होगा, फिर आपको टैगलेट आके बताएगा कि सी प्रॉपर डालो आप, फिर आएगा. ठीक है, जस्ट बी केयरफुल. ओके, इन बीसी इट इज, बीसी की प्रॉपर्टीज आप देख सकते हो थोड़ी थोड़ी. लॉग चेंजेस, ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, रहने दो. This search spec is a very important field. ठीक है, ये आपके यहाँ यूज हो रहा है। इसका मीनिंग बता देता हूं मैं। मान लीजिए एक सर्विस रिक्वेस्ट है, ठीक है। रिमेंबर हम लोग बोल रहे थे कि अगर उसको सिर्फ ओपन सर्विस रिक्वेस्ट देखनी है वो माई ओपन दिखा दे, वो पीडीक्यू बना सकता है। इनके यहाँ तो डेफिनेटली यूज हो रहा है। इनके यहाँ व्हाट इज सर्च स्पेक इज इन इटसेल्फ इज अ वेरी वेरी गुड आइडिया। आपको वैसे ही पता होना चाहिए, ठीक है।